The Russian economy is entering a phase where even official statistics can no longer hide the scale of the problems. In particular, as reported by the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine, the profits of enterprises this year have decreased by 8%. This indicates a systemic decline in business activity. And in the credit market, the share of problematic borrowers has reached almost 25%. In addition, more than 165,000 Russian companies are already unable to service their debts. Analysts note that all this data indicates that the Russian economy is losing its ability to generate profit even in its strongest sectors. And the growth of debt suggests that the crisis is not a temporary disruption but is becoming the norm. Across Russia, repairs to the country's infrastructure are being postponed en masse. According to the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine, the official explanation for this is a lack of funding. But in reality, there is only one reason. State debts are being spent on the war against Ukraine, and even these resources are rapidly running out. Analysts note that the Russian economy has started to deteriorate even faster. My colleague Nikita Skoblikov will continue on this topic.
The Russian economy is deteriorating faster than expected. This is being recorded by the Institute for Emerging Economies of the Bank of Finland. All key indicators are going down. Even the Kremlin's pessimistic forecasts are not coming true. The main reason is the bet on war. Virtually all of the country's resources are being thrown into military spending, while other sectors are simply suffocating under these conditions.
In our current forecast, it is assumed that government spending will contribute to maintaining domestic demand and especially production in sectors related to military expenditures. Growth in other sectors of the economy will be limited by a labor shortage and tighter borrowing conditions. Unless there are significant changes in Russia's domestic policy or major external shocks, we expect Russia's GDP to grow by only 1% per year throughout the forecast period. From the report of the Bank of Finland Institute for Emerging Economies.
Finnish analysts emphasize that Russia's economy is being stifled by military spending and dependence on China. The report states that more than 40% of the state budget is spent on the war against Ukraine and so-called internal security. At the same time, revenues are growing, more slowly than expenditures, and the deficit is increasing. Moscow has only one way left to plug the gaps, raise taxes, and cut spending on its own citizens. In
the Novosibirsk, Orenburg, Yaroslavl, Voronezh, and Ulyanovsk regions, as well as in Dagestan and Krasnoyarsk Krai, they have already started planning to increase regional levies. Specifically, in 3 regions, the vehicle tax will increase. In the Novosibirsk region by 10.9%, in Krasnoyarsk Krai by more than 10%, and in the Orenburg region by more than 30%. From a publication by the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service on Telegram.
In addition to raising taxes, the Kremlin is also cutting financial support for its citizens and various social benefits. Analysts note that the Russian economy is currently in an extremely vulnerable position.
The reduction of various programs that previously stimulated the Russian economy, such as preferential mortgages and certain other payments for some people, as well as tax increases, are attempts to collect certain funds, so to speak, retroactively. This is happening after the relevant financial books have already been closed, among many other things. At the
beginning of 2025, Russian media reported that the level of Russia's national debt had reached 13.5% and continues to grow. Experts warn that this trend is leading the country toward financial instability. Resources are not being used for development, but to maintain the military machine. As a result, across the Russian Federation, there is a mass. Repairs to infrastructure objects, from roads and communication lines to schools and kindergartens, are being postponed en masse. According to the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service, the official reasons cited are lack of funding, delays in the delivery of materials, and equipment shortages. But in reality, the reason is obvious. State funds are being redirected to continue the war against Ukraine.
In Kamchatka, the repair of the underwater internet cable has been postponed until 2026, which puts the region's residents at risk of losing high-speed connectivity. A similar situation is observed in the transportation sector. The reconstruction of one of the most accident-prone highways in the Rostov region, Novocherkassk-Kamenolomny, has been postponed until 2027. In Baesk and Podufia, road repair plans have also been disrupted due to a lack of equipment and heavy machinery workload. In Kaluga, the reconstruction of 2 central streets was postponed due to limited funding, and in Kurgan, street repairs have been postponed indefinitely. From a publication by the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine on the agency's website.
These are problems that can be described as an introduction or perhaps even the beginning of stagnation, primarily in the civilian sectors of the economy. It's clear why resources are being redirected to the military sector, and naturally the civilian economy is suffering as a result. This is essentially an economy where a significant and large-scale reallocation of funds is taking place in favor of the military-industrial complex.
The Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service sums it up. Even though the Kremlin keeps insisting on the supposed development of the country's regions, the reality tells a different story. The state's resources have been scorched by the war. Everything that still functions is not aimed at improving people's lives, but at sustaining the military machine.
NATO has prepared a defense plan against a possible Russian attack on alliance members. The plan spans nearly 4,500 pages and focuses on the eastern flank. This was reported by the German publication Welt. The document was developed with the participation of all 32 NATO members under the leadership of the Supreme Command of the Alliance's land forces. The plan provides for a series of comprehensive measures to protect the organization's eastern flank. In particular, it concerns strengthening combat units, redeploying heavy equipment, and using drones, nuclear systems, and autonomous systems. A separate issue is improved coordination and data sharing among allies. For almost 2 hours, operations at Berlin-Brandenburg Airport in Germany were halted. This was due to an unidentified drone. The incident occurred the previous evening. Several flights were redirected to other airfields. After security checks and the cancellation of the alert, flights resumed. By the way, this is not the first case of aviation security being breached by drones. Just at the beginning of October, unidentified UAVs disrupted operations at Germany's second-largest airport in Munich. Lithuanian Prime Minister Inga Ruginin stated that the country will not tolerate violations of its airspace and will respond firmly to each of them. According to her, all diplomatic channels have already been used, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is preparing additional sanctions against Belarus. Ruginin described the recent incident with balloons as a hybrid attack aimed at creating a threat to aviation. She emphasized that these actions are deliberate and require a decisive response. In
the country, several mobile groups, police, border guards, and the army have been operating all week. Night patrols and other measures to protect the country's territory are also being carried out. We are responding quite firmly and declare that we will respond decisively to any violations of our airspace. We want to combine sanctions against Belarus and Russia, and this issue will be submitted for consideration to the European Commission. The same goes for the border closures. This is also a preventive measure, and we hope it will be effective. Ingrida Šimonytė, Prime Minister of Lithuania, in an interview with LSM.
Ukraine fully supports Lithuania in light of the increasing provocations from Belarus, which have already disrupted civil aviation and created tensions at the border. This was reported by Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha, who called on Europe to unite and increase pressure on the regimes in Moscow and Minsk.
Ukraine stands in solidarity with Lithuania in the face of Belarusian provocations and incursions into Lithuanian airspace, which have caused disruptions to civil aviation. Lukashenko's actions should be viewed as part of Russia's hybrid attacks on Europe. We call on Europe to unite, to be strong, and to put pressure on both regimes to make it clear that such actions come at a price. Andriy Sybiha, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on the social network X.